My name's Peter Ivankovich, own Ivankovich Farms. That I've been in it all my life, even as a child. My father started early 50s, late 40s, early 50s, and I've been in after I left school full time. And in about 1990, after my father passed away, we sold the land in Spearwood where we were, and I purchased the first property, 1990. And since then we've purchased another 3 properties, the last one being about 2 years ago. Our main crop's carrots, then onions, and then potatoes. We don't grow a great deal of potatoes, but we grow potatoes for the domestic market. Onions are domestic and export, and carrots traditionally export. That's our main outlet for carrots. Wire weed is one of the worst ones, and umbrella sedge is another one. Wild turnip, wild radish as well, and crabgrass. After we finished harvesting a crop out, we'll put peas in as a green manure and partly weed. It does help with weed control. After the cover crop, it's mostly ploughing. That's about all. I mean, once we've ploughed the peas in, we use traditionally seeded a vegetable crop in, and then of course it's herbicides. I mean, you put your pre-emergent ones out. When we put our carrots or onions in, we put wheat with it, and then once the wheat's high enough as a cover crop, and then we knock that off with Fusilade Forte.
My name is Grant Swan. I work for David Grays Aglink as an agronomist on the horticultural side of the business. David Grays is a locally owned Western Australian business. We wholesale and distribute a wide range of agricultural products through a number of stores in the state, both broadacre and horticultural. We also have AgroAdvantage, which is a R&D side of the business. Looking at some new products, new methods of production to help optimise production for the growers. We've been involved with UNE and Ivankovich Farms from 2018, setting up the trial, helping with seeding and supplying one of the products, the biofumigation mix. Obviously also been doing the crop monitoring, doing the weed counts throughout the season at regular intervals, and then taking biomass samples at the end of the season, just comparing the amounts of biomass produced by the weeds and the different treatments. The more issues that growers tend to run into, whether it be from soil-borne disease, from a weed management side of things, people will look at the potential benefits of cover cropping. So we've certainly been very impressed by the performance of the cereal rye, the rye corn. It's high vigor, so its ability to germinate quickly, get up out of the ground early, and get some good ground coverage certainly seem to outcompete a lot of the weeds coming through. So there might not have been massive differences in the number of weeds found throughout the different treatments, but the biomass was a lot lower, I think, in the cereal rye plot. And obviously this leads to the weeds not setting seed as well, which is an important consideration. The ryegrass didn't seem too bad. It doesn't quite have the early vigor that the cereal rye does, so it still allowed some weeds to get through early on. The weeds that did manage to get through early got a bit of size to them and were able to set some seed, which is obviously not what you're looking for. There can be some benefits of having a grass type product in the mix, potentially not carrying over some diseases, depending on what crop you're growing, obviously. I think there's still a fit for the brassica crops and cover cropping. They don't have the early vigor that the cereal rye does, but once they get going, if you seed at a high enough density and you've got some nutrition in the ground to get them going and to get them to form some biomass and get some good height, they do tend to outcompete the weeds still. So we saw a lot of small weeds in those plots which weren't ever going to get any seed going back into the seed bank. So you're getting the benefit from the brassicas of that biofumigation in the soil. So if you're targeting soil-borne pathogens as well, it's certainly a product to look at, one of the mustard crops. The field peas are a bit slow to get going initially, So it gives the weeds a chance to get up and start growing, possibly go to seed really before the peas can outcompete them.
I've learnt there's a few different varieties of cover crops that work better than others. It definitely does work. Cereal rye was most probably the better one. Winter's the most relevant because you're growing the crop with rain virtually, and you do a little bit of irrigating but not much. Water is the issue. If I had plenty of water, I'd definitely go down that line and use cereal rye, I reckon.
I think we've seen that cover cropping, a good quality cover crop, can certainly be an effective tool in a weed management situation. One of the key points would be that you need a high vigor crop as your cover crop to get up out of the ground early, get some good coverage, shade the weeds out and not let them set seed really. That's a key point. The other one is that obviously if you're going to be putting a cover crop in, you want it to work well, it needs to be fairly well looked after. Specifically crops like the brassicas or the cereal rye crop. It needs to have a bit of fertiliser, a bit of nutrition in the ground and probably a bit of water as well, just to keep it going. You need that biomass to outcompete the weeds. That's really what you're wanting to do.